Good afternoon. Okay, hi, I'm opening up the meeting so we can get started, okay? Thank you.
No. Fabulous job. You want to start with the first? Yeah, okay, you're waiting, right? Okay,
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Jerome Jones, Director of Labor Relations and Negotiations for City Schools.
Hi, Jeremy Grant-Skinner, Chief Human Capital Officer.
And we are here for the first reader of disclosure of financial impropriety and improper conduct, policy EAB. Let's see. Okay, so presently, City Schools does not have a policy that requires employees to report fraudulent behavior or conduct, and nor does it have a policy that protects employees from reprisal if they report improper conduct or behavior. So what we've done, this policy, what the purpose of this policy is to protect employees who report fraudulent or improper conduct, whistleblower, from reprisal and or adverse employment action. And effective October 1, 2017, Maryland implemented Education Articles 6-901 through 6-906, which really is also the whistleblower policy for Maryland. And this policy, we've incorporated that law into this policy. We have talked to, yes?
Can I ask, I'm going to ask questions between, right there, what you're saying is the policy, because I do know that Maryland have a policy for whistleblowers.
Maryland has a
So
law.
What you're saying is you incorporate their policy into.
Yes.
our policy.
It is actually an education article, and those articles
Right.
listed up there are what Maryland just adopted.
Okay.
And as part of this policy, we made sure that the policy and the accompanying regs incorporate the education articles
Right.
associated
I'm
with
familiar
that.
with that policy. To use their policy,
Your microphone.
right.
Say it one more time.
Sorry. This was the first year that school boards were required to be part of the whistleblower protection.
Right, I know that policy. Thank you, I just wanted to be sure.
Commissioner, I would just add that, as you'll see, the City Schools was working on this policy in collaboration with stakeholders going back to last school year. So given the change to Maryland law, we've ensured that this policy complies with those requirements.
So we have presented this policy to all of the unions for feedback. I've met with the Charter Advisory Group and also PCAP to get their feedback. So, summary of the policy, it requires employees to report improper conduct. Now, what we're talking about here in improper conduct is generally that of a fiduciary nature and or behavior which City Schools believes is not conducive to the education environment. And what I should point out is that any conduct improper conduct with regard to children is covered separately because of reporting requirements. And we actually have school board policy GBEBB, improper conduct with students, that covers any behavior which is improper and involves students and adults. It defines the type of improper conduct that requires reporting. We also define who will receive whistleblower protection and what it encompasses. It protects employees from reprisal for reporting improper conduct and requires an annual report to the board on the status and disposition of all allegations of misconduct. We tailored this after the requirement under GBEBB that once a year we come in front of the board and we talk about the numbers of cases that have been referred that involved improper conduct by staff towards students and what the disposition is. So for this policy, we mirrored that as a part of the policy.
Questions. What I know about the state policy and I see you have it in the first line, requires employees to report improper. Is it true that if an employee sees an incident and does not report it, they can be held accountable? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. And also in this policy, it does require that if an employee reports something as improper conduct, they must have a basis and a reason that they actually believe that the conduct occurred. Simply reporting as a retribution could result in disciplinary action for an employee. It establishes that city schools management has the responsibility to investigate and correct any and all financial improprieties and improper conduct. We already do that through the Office of Staff Investigations. They now take on almost all of the cases of improper conduct. When necessary, they will pull in the audit team, the board's audit team, to assist in looking at cases that become very complicated. So there's already a mechanism in place within city schools to look at these types of things. What this policy is, it mandates that employees report and also protects employees that report. So it identifies the reporting options. For instance, you can go directly to your supervisor. If you believe your supervisor, the individual who is engaging in misconduct, it allows you to go directly to the Office of Staff Investigations and/or their hotline that they have set up. There's responsibilities for the supervisor who receives notice, and then it establishes that the Office of Staff Investigations is the agency that is mandated to do the investigation, lead the investigations, and they also have the ability to pull in other resources as needed. And the process to handle substantiated allegations. That is also a part of this policy and regulation. So we will disseminate information and files at the conclusion of the investigation. If they are unsubstantiated, they typically go directly to the employee will get a notice that it is unsubstantiated. The Office of Labor Relations also gets notice that it is unsubstantiated. If it is substantiated, it would then come to the Office of Labor Relations to start the process for any disciplinary actions or follow-up or hearings with regard to the allegations. And they're following options for complaints or retaliation as a result of reporting suspicious behavior. So that is a part of this policy also. So the Office of Human Capital is responsible for notifying new employees of the policy as part of the onboarding process. We will update the employee handbook, which all employees must annually acknowledge review with the information about this policy. And that is pretty much it.
Can we go to the definition? I'm on the policy, how we define improper conduct? Because what I think of, it just wasn't explicit that also, it wasn't explicit enough for me around stealing money, embezzlement. I see forging, altering, falsifying, tampering, documents, account signature, inappropriate. Why don't we just, is there a reason why we're not just more explicit to say that that is something that we see as improper conduct?
So, can you restate
It's
that for me?
improper conduct. It says includes but it's not limited to city schools. Serious. It keep going at like halfway down. It says about safety, security, public health, danger. But then serious breaches of board policies, semicolon, forging, altering, falsifying, or otherwise tampering with any city schools document, account, or signature inappropriate. I read the whole thing and it just isn't as explicit as improper conduct. We've had problem with embezzlement. We've had problem with people stealing money. Like that to me is a form of improper conduct that we'd want to call out.
On the other hand, if it's a really exhaustive list, then we might miss something and someone be creative in a way around it. Well, you
Yeah,
know.
and it still does say, not limited. It says, yeah, okay, where do you, it says, the whole includes but not limited
Yeah,
to, so,
right.
but to me, that's one thing I want to see as, okay, financial improprieties, 2D, abuse of authority, mismanagement, substantial waste of money, including fraud claims. Got it. Okay. I went right to improper conduct. As that was a piece of improper, we see that as, okay, financial impropriety. But then, are we saying that, okay, I'll reread it.
Sure that financial
It's like
improprieties
Fridays.
are included anywhere that improper conduct.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
included.
Then we'd have to do it that way, then I'm
Yeah.
good. No, that,
But
question.
can you make sure that too, that look to make sure that anywhere that we're identifying improper conduct, that there's also financial improprieties are also
Included.
included, since that's where the definition of some of those financial concerns you're mentioning
Yeah.
are. We just have
Okay.
to make sure that any time we're outlining behavior that we should be monitoring, that it should include not just improper conduct, but also financial improprieties.
Any other? Okay. On the policy document, under Roman numeral 3, policy standards, letter D, it says, "Nothing in this policy is intended to interfere with legitimate employment decisions." I'm wondering if we don't need legitimate employment decisions in the definitions. 'Cause I kind of read that and went, and what does that mean?
3D?
So under Roman numeral 3, letter D,
Got it.
Gotcha.
and I'm just wondering if that shouldn't be in the definitions, if that's possible, without limiting us.
Sure, we'll look
Okay,
into that.
yeah.
If
we
you
can
take a look
add
at it. And then also under the regulations, there's no mention of a due process timeline. I'm wondering if that was oversight or if it's intentional that we're not doing that to leave flexibility. Either way, I'm okay. I just want to highlight it, that it may become problematic, especially if a potential violation we're made note of towards the end of the school year. Does that have implications for over the summer, things like that? And then the other regulation for consideration is I'm wondering if we shouldn't add upon request, every possible attempt to relocate a whistleblower to a similar role in the district will be made. So that if I say, my principal did this, I'm telling you, now can you help me find a new building? That we will not only not punitively, but certainly not reward someone, but just make sure that they don't also have to be in potentially complicated working situations. So that's the end of where I'm. Excellent. So I think that we're good then.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, committee, for starting without me. Traffic on 695 is somewhat unpredictable. Apparently, everyone is on their way home for Thanksgiving already.
But we had 3 here, so we
Yes.
said, let's get the
Well,
party
and
started.
I had actually called AJ and Tina and left them both messages that said, go ahead. So then,
I got you.
as I'm driving, I'm like, Siri, tell them I'm on my way.
We'll get it going.
Yes. Anyway, all right, moving on to ADC, smoke and vape-free school environments.
Sorry. These are all of them as currently written, and so really, we're just modifying it.
Joanna, since we do recorded minutes,
Should
can
I
you say
start
your
over?
name again?
Sure,
Well, just who
Joanna.
you are.
So I'm Joanna Pisunier, Green Schools Coordinator with Baltimore City Public Schools. We need to update our board rules for several reasons. The first is that in the intervening time from the board rules to now, the city of Baltimore has added some restrictions regarding smoking near school properties, and so we want to be consistent with that. And then there have also just been generalized changes. There were not e-cigarettes when those rules were created. We didn't have a student code of conduct as such. We didn't have charter schools. So there are a number of things that we need to do to bring it up to date. Another reason to update it is that all of our schools that are in the 21st Century Schools Plan are required under state law to achieve a LEED green building standard of LEED Silver. And that program, you may be familiar with that, is there are a number of things you have to do that are baseline, you have no choice about, and then it's a point-based system that's a sort of an a la carte menu that you can pick things from in order to achieve a certain number of points to get the certification. And so we think, given that we already have a smoke-free environment, that it made sense to try and go for this point. And there were some requirements about the number of feet that smoking could not take place near the school. And so again, by the time, if we make it consistent with the city policy, we will also meet the LEED requirement for this. You probably know this, as the policy committee, we cannot just update our board rules. We actually need to convert it to a new policy. We did look at existing policies to see if there were any that it could be added to rather than creating a new policy. We did not find any that it would be appropriate to add it to, and therefore recommend that a new policy be created. Consulted with a lot of different internal offices to make sure that it was consistent with existing practices and policies. So whether that be 21st Century, academics, of course, legal, all the departments that are listed were on board with these changes. We also consulted with external partners to get advice. The City Health Department provided some language because they're doing a lot of anti-smoking campaign work and were interested in seeing our policy be strengthened. The Legal Resource Center for Public Health Law at the University of Maryland provided some guidance about consistency with other policies at other school districts across the state. And then Lorax is the lead consultant for the 21st Century School Buildings Plan and provided us advice to make sure that the policy would be consistent and meet the needs to get that additional lead point. That is the summary of my presentation.
So as we turn it over to questions on,
Yes.
when you mentioned, I thought it was fascinating, on slide 5, that you couldn't find a policy to add this to, that was I went to the policies, I'm like, why aren't we just adding this to a non-tobacco use policy we already have? And I went, wow, we don't have policy, so thank you. Commissioners, questions? No. Peter?
Part of this is education for me. Like, it was helpful. I just read through the definition of an electronic cigarette vape because I see all these shops. I just want to make sure we've included it all. Like, I go through, see these shops, there's all these different devices that I don't really understand, and I'm not an expert. I don't even know what my question is, but there's e-cigarettes, there's e-cigars, e-pipes,
Or something going
vape. What's vape versus the electronic
Well, and there's also a
cigarette?
lot of, for those of us with teenagers, there is some belief that vaping is actually safe because if it's not tobacco, you can vape like lemon cake flavor. And it
Right.
doesn't have any tobacco in it. But there's still a lot of evidence that that's not a good thing to be doing for our health and for others, and therefore, we want to
So
not
you've
allow that.
included all that. You
We
feel
try,
good
I mean,
about
if you
that.
read the FDA, the long decision also about what tobacco is also extremely long. So, and we struggled a bunch with a name to what to call, originally it was the smoke-free or tobacco-free policy, and then it was like, well, but that doesn't include all of the vaping of non-tobacco products.
Yeah, it's covered because it says, or the other substance and the use or inhalation of which simulates smoking.
Right.
Well,
That's
it
what
also
you-
further in the policy talks about any other way of ingesting it. You can absorb it. It's pretty
Okay.
comprehensive all the way
Okay.
through.
Yeah, okay, I'm kind of, yeah, okay, I'm good. Okay,
It
you feel
actually
good.
smells worse than cigarettes.
Oh.
It lasts longer.
My specific question is, under the regulations, the Roman numeral 2 guidelines,
Yes.
capital letter A, implementation, number 1, signage.
Yes.
I think that we should add not just building entrances, but I'm thinking about like Dunbar. If you go to the football field at Dunbar, you do not enter through the main door of the building. So I'm thinking about all major entrances to school facilities.
Okay.
And then, as well as, especially in our 21st century schools, community school entrances. Because if it's not, and I know signage is expensive, and that could be problematic, but there are grants out there that might be able to help us with that. And we really need to think about those places where you don't go through the front door to get to the school. There's a number of other
Okay.
fields, and
Yep, good point, thank you.
especially then those that are community use. And that was my only
Okay.
question on this one.
That's a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We are on to a written update of ADF-RD. Is Luis around? Yes. Oh, your voice has gotten so deep, Dr. Fink.
James Torrance, Staff Specialist for Strategy and Compliance. I am filling in for Dr. Fink, who has a family member who's ill. So hopefully we can keep her in our prayers. Just to give you an idea, back in 2015, Baltimore City Public Schools implemented the wellness policy, which is ADF, as you all know. That policy outlined where city schools would be in terms of healthy well-being. And at that time, the board was told that we would come back with goals that would be in a actual executive regulations. So Dr. Fink, along with the Wellness Council, which is both internal staff and also external staff external partners such as University of Baltimore, University of Maryland, Baltimore, Johns Hopkins, and a few other institutions, as well as a Alliance for a Healthy Generation, who does a lot of the work around the country for wellness policies. Wanted to make sure that Baltimore City articulated directly what we're currently doing and also how we're going to get there. And in the actual regulations, you'll see that these are all things that we currently do. So it mentions our substance use program that we do with the Baltimore health system, mental health system, as well as it mentions trauma-informed care and the training and that how we're doing it and those goals forward. That's just general background.
So just to make sure that everybody is clear, this particular update, the RD, doesn't impact the overall wellness policy or ADF-RA, ADF-RB, or ADF-RC.
No, each one of those is a different. So basically, each administrative regulation is becoming a milestone. These are milestones that we want to get to, and they're also articulating our goals. We told the board what the goals were, and now after talking to external partners, we know how to get there, and we're trying to get them to help us to get there as well.
So as of this point, none of these have been implemented. When I first opened this, I'm looking at summary report. I'm looking for what's happening,
That is
already
what we're
taking
currently doing. So one of the things you'll find out is that this is current practices, but it's also attached to the goals for those current practices. So just to give you an idea for trauma-informed care, that trauma-informed care has changed when we had the unrest because we have more coordinated services again. We also have in our schools, we have 15 substance use counselors. So one of the things this goes is increasing that substance use. Notice I say substance use rather than substance abuse, because we understand that people can currently function and not be abusing the actual drug, but it may be a way to avoid that.
Well, I would just add to your list, just in case they're listening. Yes, in addition to our partnership with the Alliance for Healthier Generations, Action for Healthy Kids, that we also have recently become a partner with them. So just, we don't want them to feel slighted. Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Wishing Dr. Fink well.
Thank you.
Yep. Do we have public comment on today? Do you know? Did anybody sign up? Okay. So I'm going to invite Duana to share with us just a quick, very, very high overview of how we're looking at forming the legislative platform this year.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Duana Starrett. I'm the Director of Legislative and Governmental Affairs. I forgot what it was. And this year, we're doing the development of the legislative platform slightly different. We are going to hold a public forum on November 30th at 6 p.m. in this room. And this forum will allow the public to provide information, insight, testimony, their thoughts about what they believe should be the priorities for the school system in the upcoming legislative session that begins January of 2018. And so unlike other years where I would do a full presentation of the thoughts and what I think the board should support prior to the public receiving, prior to actual public testimony, the public will actually just hear me give some general buckets of topics that are of interest in the last legislative sessions, and then the public will be open to provide any other information or priorities or thoughts to the board. And from that, I will then have meetings with other organizations, elected officials, and then we'll come back to the board with a platform that has everyone's thoughts in it.
Perfect, thank you very much. We do have a few people in the audience. Did anybody plan on testifying or? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Just as a reminder for the public comment portion of the policy meetings, that advanced sign-up is permitted beginning at 9 a.m. on the Thursday before the meeting. You can sign up either by calling the board office at 443-984-2000 or emailing schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us. We'll allow up to 5 people to present with 3 minutes each. So if you have comments or questions or input on the policies on the table or any of our upcoming policies, feel free to join us. Our next meeting will be December 19th from 3:30 to 5:30, where we'll talk about policy GBCA, salaries and salary schedule, and that's a conversion from a board rule, and about grants development. All right. As of 4:01 p.m., I get the award for shortest meeting ever. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.